Take. I'm Evan Cohen, and we've got Brian Windhorst, Kendrick Perkins, and David Dennis Jr. here to get you all of the NBA news from the weekend. And of course, we start in Los Angeles. After a postseason that saw the Lakers get bounced in the first round, LeBron James exercised his $52.6 million option for the Lakers next season. But not without some interesting comments by his agent, Rich Paul, as told to our Shams Charania. Quote, LeBron wants to compete for a championship. He knows the Lakers are building for the future. He understands that, but he values a realistic chance of winning it all. We are very appreciative of the partnership that we've had for 8 years with Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka, and consider the Lakers as a critical part of his career. We understand the difficulty in winning now while preparing for the future. We do want to evaluate what's best for LeBron at this stage in his life and career. He wants to make every season he has left count. And the Lakers understand that, are supportive of that, and want what's best for him. Windy, your biggest takeaway from these statements are what?
That's a lot of words, and it's not really clear. And Rich Paul said each of them with careful thought. I know, I spoke to him last night, and he basically said them again, reiterating them. Now, if LeBron had just opted into his contract and moved on with the summer, there would not have been a lot of reaction. Opting into his contract is a little bit unusual. He has had 8 different times in his career where he's had a player option or something like a player option in his contract, and he's never opted into it once. He has always either opted out and left, which he did 3 different times to his teams, or he's opted out and started and gotten a new contract. So in and of itself, accepting a player option and going into the last year of his contract is unusual. In fact, never in the 23-year time of his career has LeBron ever been on a contract that's just 1 year. But he's also not the franchise player for a team for the first time starting a season in his career. So if he just opted into his contract, it would have been a little bit different, but we would not have reacted to it. These comments are what we're reacting to. And the thing about it is it implies that LeBron is not settled, that he's not 100% sure he's going to be a Laker. They're clearly left open to that ambiguity. If there's one thing that's clear about Rich's comments, it's that they're ambiguous, and that's all you can say. So the thing about it is that there's only a few ways to leave a team. One way is free agency. LeBron has bypassed it. LeBron could have been a free agent this morning. He has bypassed it. The other way is trade, which is what I'm sure a lot of people reacted to in reading those comments. But I just have to tell you guys, I think it's very unlikely LeBron is traded. Number one, he makes $53 million. It's very hard to trade a contract of that size in today's NBA. Secondly, he has a no-trade clause, which not only means he can determine where he's traded, it means that he can determine what he's traded for. And so it's very unlikely that there is a trade. So I am expecting LeBron to be a Laker next season, but I'm also telling you I don't know what to make of these comments.
Perk?
LeBron ain't going nowhere. LeBron ain't going nowhere. I think because it's a new owner, it was just a message out there. And one, I think it was clarity on Rich Paul's part about him opting in, which got us to this point. But I think also it was a message to the new ownership group that the standards are the same, right? I'm trying to compete for a championship. And as the new owner of the Lakers, the standards should always be that. You're one of the most historic franchises in sports that have built your franchise on winning championships. Also, Rich Paul said, we understand. We understand that you're building for the future. The future is now. Luka Doncic is the future. It is now. He's only 2 years removed from the NBA Finals. You don't think Luka is trying to compete for a championship right now? Yes, absolutely. LeBron James, 45-minute flight to Arizona, where his son Bryce, his youngest son Bryce, is going to school at. Bronny James is still on the team. J.J. Redick, who Bron wanted as the coach, is still the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. He will be a Laker. He signed to be, he opted in to be a Laker. So my thing is, to me, it just sounds like a message to the Lakers that the standard is still the same when it comes down to how LeBron James feels, and it's about championships this late in his career. And who's to say he didn't opt in because this might be his last year playing the game of basketball? The man is going to be eligible for his pension in 5 years.
David, there's a lot to...
That's amazingly true.
There's a lot to digest here, okay? So the statement talks about winning a championship. Right. We don't know if the Lakers are a championship-level team. Perk said he's not going anywhere. Windy said it's unlikely that he's not going anywhere. Your reaction to Rich Paul?
Yeah, this is the LeBron-Rich Paul playbook that they've used for his entire career, even before the NBA. I mean, LeBron determines what happens ever since high school, right? And now the playbook is the same, but the game has changed, right? LeBron does not have the leverage that he once had. LeBron and Rich Paul love keeping their organizations on their toes, making them feel like they constantly have to work and add free agents to do whatever they can to win a championship on his watch in his window. The problem is that window isn't there anymore. They're building around Luka. LeBron and Rich Paul, for as long as he's been in the league, tells franchises to jump, and they traditionally say how high. Now with the Lakers, they have to say, we're going to check with Luka first before we see how high we jump. LeBron is unfamiliar for him, and that unfamiliarity creates some of that awkward language that we saw from Rich Paul. They're navigating a new reality that they haven't had to deal with before.
Sign and trade from Cleveland to Miami. That's very technical. In reality, he has never actually asked out. Is this the closest we've ever seen to LeBron almost asking out?
I understand your question. I don't understand the message from Rich Paul, and I suspect the Lakers don't understand it either. And the reason I suspect that is that the Lakers did not make a statement yesterday. When a player opts into his contract, it is traditional for the team to announce it, even if it's a player farther down the roster. Certainly when it's one of your franchise players, you would announce it. The Lakers made no announcement yesterday. And in fact, I had to check with teams in the league to make sure LeBron actually went through with the process of signing the paperwork to opt in. And he did. It's all official and everything. But the Lakers, because I wanted to see what the Lakers said about this. Because last year when LeBron signed a contract, the 9th contract of his career, the 3rd contract he signed with the Lakers, they put out a tremendous press release with a quote from Rob Pelinka. I counted the words, it was like 120 words. Yesterday, nothing. And I suspect it's because they're busy at work trying to add to their roster, but I suspect it's because they're trying to digest this situation too and try to understand how to respond to it because it is unusual. You guys are saying that LeBron and Rich like attention and this is what they've always done. I guess that's true. And by the way, teams are saying that same thing to me, like you guys are echoing what other teams are saying. This maneuver is different. It may not be different in a way that needs to stop all the business in the league, but the way this contract situation is being handled has never been done by LeBron before. This statement alongside this move has never been, I've never seen anything like this before. I have to say to you, I don't know. And I talked to Rich and I heard what he had to say, and I still don't 100% know what their plan is.
Wendy, but do the Lakers actually owe anybody a statement, to be honest with you? Last year was different. You know why? Because they didn't have Luka Doncic last year. LeBron James was still the face of that franchise. Now all of a sudden, your face of your franchise is Luka Doncic. So if I'm the Lakers, I'm not worried about a statement that came out from Rich Paul or LeBron James. Now, yes, I do want to do right by LeBron James, and I'm going to hear him out. But my focus is Luka Doncic and how he's feeling. Wendy, you alluded to it that Luka Doncic, they have to get him re-signed, right? It's no guarantee that he's going to re-sign with the Lakers. That's my first priority, is seeing where Luka head is at and doing my job to make sure I go out and get the pieces that surround Luka. LeBron would fit in, but I need to make sure Luka is happy before LeBron. I don't expect the Lakers to drop a statement. I don't see why they should.
Well, the reason I'm wondering is because I want to hear how they respond to those comments, because I don't know how I would respond, and the fact that they haven't responded to me is telling. But you are correct, Perk. From the minute that they traded for Luka, while the whole NBA was picking themselves off the court, August 2nd was rushing at them because Luka has one guaranteed year left on his deal. He can opt out next year. You'd never, ever want to have your star player in his prime. In LeBron's case, he's in his 40s. It's a different situation. You never want to have your star player on the last year of his contract, ever, especially when you don't know what your roster is going to be. And they don't, guys. Right now, the Lakers have almost nobody under contract for next season, not even Luka. So you want to make sure that you have him locked in. And here's the reality that LeBron's decision yesterday and these comments have underscored. When Luka makes that decision in August, whether he makes it August 2nd or later on in the offseason, LeBron is not going to be part of that calculus. Going forward, the Lakers have to operate like LeBron James is only going to be there for one more season. Maybe that'll change. Maybe the Lakers will win 65 games this year. Maybe they'll win the championship. Maybe everything will be different. But as of today, based on this statement and these actions, Luka has got to consider the 2026 and beyond. LeBron's not going to be there. This contract will be 2026 and beyond. If he re-signs with the Lakers, it's because he believes in the brand and the new ownership and their maneuverability and their history and the draw of Southern California. It wouldn't be because he's going to want to be with LeBron. LeBron is not going to figure into this decision.
And you got to think that the Lakers knew something like this was going to come from LeBron, right? This is what he does. They've been with him for 8 seasons now. LeBron does this every offseason. He pushes you to try to be better and to make those moves. But what the Lakers now have is that the leverage of having Luka on the team, and they got to feel a little bit of relief right now, right? That they can see a message like this from LeBron and Rich Paul, and they can say, all right, that's fine, but we still have our franchise player, and we don't have to bend the knee to you for whatever you do. The Lakers are a proud franchise, a proud organization, and they have had to live with these years of saying LeBron gets to pick the coach, LeBron makes you draft his son, you do everything for LeBron, and now they can say we don't have to necessarily do that because we have Luka Doncic and we have to be beholden to a new superstar for the next decade.
And the reality is, for the first time in his life, he's probably not the best player on the team. So when you say it's the same playbook, it may be the same playbook, but those that he's playing with are different than they've ever been, really probably since before he was in high school. So free agency gets going 6 p.m. Eastern today. All the coverage here on ESPN and ESPN2. So elsewhere in the NBA, we saw a move that could definitely catch the Lakers' attention. Former #1 overall draft pick Deandre Ayton is finalizing a contract buyout with the Blazers to become a free agent. Ayton is a 27-year-old center who was part of the Suns' finals run in 2021. You may have heard, Lakers are in the market for a center. David, is DeAndre Ayton the missing piece for LA?
No, he's not. They're not going to find a missing piece in free agency or these mid-level guys they get to, bolster their bench. DeAndre Ayton can help. The guys like the centers that they are looking for, they can help. The thing that's going to elevate the Lakers to a championship-level team is Luka Doncic being a top 3 to top 5 player in the league. Now, we saw the potential for what Luka Doncic could do with that team when he came in, but he was still hurt. He was still not in his best shape. They played their absolute best defensively for 3 months and then petered out. What they need is a full season, a full MVP-level Luka Doncic, because that's going to determine if they're a championship team or not. All of these guys in the margins are going to be great. He's going to have a lob threat. They can have people that can, where J.J. Redick's not playing the same 5 guys for a second half in an NBA playoff game. But what they need, and the only thing that's going to elevate them to championship level, is Luka Doncic starting in October, in shape, getting them off to the races as a real Western Conference contender.
And I believe that is a Beyonce moment for us upgrading at the center position from what they had last year. But I will say this about DeAndre Ayton. The word around the league is not good about DeAndre Ayton. The Portland Trail Blazers were happy as hell that they got to this point with him. Right now, he's been labeled as a diva, as a cancer in the locker room. And if I'm DeAndre Ayton, I got to have a moment. I got to have someone speak the real to me, because we're talking about a former #1 pick that didn't work out with his team, that didn't work out with the Phoenix Suns, a team that drafted him #1. And now you get to the Portland Trail Blazers that were absolutely happy as hell to get him in the trade. They welcomed him with open arms. They thought he was going to be one of those guys for the future. And now you get to this point, right? And see, what happened is that when you have guys like DeAndre Ayton, you believe that things can happen to you. And I believe that he's one situation away. The next situation or next organization that he lands to, even if it's the Lakers, he has to change a lot about himself, or he will find his career being shortened and he will find himself out of the league. But can DeAndre Ayton help The Lakers, absolutely, because Luka thrives in a lob threat. DeAndre Ayton can be a lob threat. When DeAndre Ayton is locked in, he's focused, he's losing himself in the team, he's a hell of a player, double-double. The problem is that hasn't been the case. He came off selfish, unreliable. It was so many stories that were put out there last season that I just couldn't believe. He was backed up in traffic. Something happened where he couldn't get out of his driveway. I was like, man, come on, man. Like, what are we talking about? And here we are to this point. And by the way, last but not least, he was playing for a former player. Chauncey Billups is respected in the NBA brotherhood by everyone. If you can't get along and play for Chauncey Billups, I don't know who in the hell else you could play for.
Perk is right, Wendy. DeAndre Ayton should go somewhere where it doesn't snow so he can get out of his driveway, because that was obviously an issue last year. But within the Rich Paul statement, there was a part of this that LeBron said on the Mind the Game podcast, his podcast with Steve Nash, that the ring chasing is not something that he embraces. Yet he wants to still win a championship. Now I'm sure he wants to bring in guys that can help him win a championship. Is DeAndre Ayton one of them?
He can help. I mean, I think if you look at the Ayton story and the Lakers story are two separate stories. The Blazers traded for DeAndre Ayton 2 years ago. They watched him play for a season, and in the two following drafts, they drafted centers. Actions over words, okay? I mean, and so Donovan Clingan is now their franchise center, and they drafted Yang Hansen, who's the first Chinese player to be drafted in 18 years, is actually 7'1". He's actually one of the more fascinating players to watch out of this draft. They're very, and he has a $35 million contract, and the Blazers in June decided that there was no way they could trade it. So they ended up buying him out. So that said, you realize the Lakers did not have I don't want to insult DeAndre Ayton. I think he's a very good guy. I like him a lot personally. I don't want to insult Jackson Hayes. But Jackson Hayes is not a starting center in the NBA. And at the end of last season, the Lakers were basically playing LeBron and Dorian Finney-Smith, two forwards, as centers instead of playing Jackson Hayes. So if you have no starting center and you have a guy who averaged 14 and 10 last year, I mean, he will play minutes, he will get rebounds, and he will help you out. I don't think he's demonstrated he can be a championship center to this point in his career. But if you're going from no center, where you're literally going to play with just forwards out there, and Rui Hachimura as well playing center, to that, yeah, that helps, but I don't think he's going to be the number one option. What ended up happening yesterday, the Lakers had Dorian Finney-Smith opt out of his contract. They've been negotiating with Dorian Finney-Smith for weeks. They did not come to terms with the contract, and now I think there's a very good chance Dorian Finney-Smith's going to be leaving the Lakers. Okay? And so that means they have $14 million that they can spend in one bite on a center. And there's some options out there beyond DeAndre Ayton. Brook Lopez is one, for example, that they can. But I predict by first take tomorrow, the Lakers will have a center. And by first take on Friday, I think the Lakers might have multiple centers.
Perk, just back to you on one thing on this. When we're looking through the prism of the Lakers getting a center, as Brian just mentioned, maybe one, or definitely one, maybe two. Are we looking at it through the prism of who plays the best with Luka or who plays the best with the Lakers? Because those are two different things, obviously.
Well, you're looking through the lens of who plays best with Luka. And to be honest with you, I understand. I'm not taking anything away from Brook Lopez, but I don't believe he's the fit. Luka thrives well with an athletic big. A big that's going to be a lob threat at the basket, a big that's going to clean the glass up like a fresh bottle of Windex. That's not who Brook Lopez is. Brook Lopez is a guy that stretches the floor and shoots a ton of threes. You need a dynamic roller so that when Luka's coming off that pick and roll, he's probing, he's either getting downhill to his floater, to the lob, or the dynamic roller is sucking in the defense where he's making those skip passes to the corner or wing for wide open threes. So do I think Brook Lopez is the answer? No. But I just wonder what is out there on the market for the Lakers. I believe that if you could get and engage DeAndre Ayton, he is a better fit for Luka than a Brook Lopez.
Well, I mean, Wendy said by tomorrow we might know probably will know who the Lakers center is. And I also guarantee you that by tomorrow we will not be saying that the Lakers are now championship contenders based on who that center is. That cupboard is just too bare for that decision. Like we're not going to be here saying that they have found the missing piece. Missing pieces in their locker room, just being a better team with what you have.
Well, but everything you're saying, I'm going to keep coming back, David, to the Rich Paul statement that LeBron wants to compete for a championship this year. Is there a missing piece, whether it's in their locker room or outside of their locker room, to get them to compete for a championship this year?
Luka Doncic, like that's what it is. It's just Luka Doncic being the best player. That's why you drafted him. You drafted him to be a better version of the guy you got. Now, it was magical for long stretches. The defense played above their scale, out of their mind for about a month and a half in that during the last stretch of that season. But you need to look in that locker room and say, Luka Doncic is the best player. J.J. Redick needs to be a little bit of a better coach, and they need to figure out how to get their defense to be sustainable for an entire season, not just February to April, and make sure that they can, be competitors in the West. Right now, we can go all through the trade machines. We can go all through every single one of these free agents. We're not going to say they found the missing link. They found something special. It's already there because that's why you made that move in February.
Well, and that to me is an amazing thought.
Yeah, but
go ahead.
I just want to point out the Lakers finished third in the West last year. And I know the difference between 3 and 7 wasn't that great. They were the number 3 seed in the West last year, and in the playoffs, J.J. Redick only trusted 5 players. I know this because he only played 5 players in the second half of a vital playoff game. So if they can add 2 or 3 players, which they can do, they have free agent money, they have expiring contracts to trade, they have some draft capital. If they can add 2 or 3 players and have a better and healthier Luka Doncic with LeBron James coming back, this team can contend in the West. Am I favoring them over Oklahoma City? I am not. But this team is not coming from nothing. They have a lot going for them.
They're the third best team in the West, but they were the third-ranked team in the West. They were not the third best team in the West, though.
But they have no choice but to add personnel to their roster. Because when you look at the 2 top dogs in the Western Conference right now, you have the defending champs in the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're deeper than the Pacific Ocean. You have the Houston Rockets that just added Kevin Durant and kept their entire core pieces that matter. They're deeper than the Atlantic Ocean. So when you're talking about the Lakers, yes, Luka Doncic has to be great. We get that, D. But the problem is that you got to have the personnel around them. Wendy just alluded and talked about Finney Smith. Finney Smith, they couldn't come to an agreement. One could argue he was their best 3-and-D guy last year. You're probably about to lose him. So you have to have depth in order to compete with Oklahoma City, in order to compete with the Houston Rockets, who both are well coached and both have superstars now on their team in SGA and Kevin Durant. You got to go add personnel to your roster. It just can't be Luka and LeBron James, and you better go out there and get some wings because that is the most important position in the NBA, and we just saw it in the NBA Finals this past season.
David, you said something very interesting, that the missing piece is in their locker room with Luka. LeBron famously about Kevin Love, fit in or fit out.
Yeah.
Maybe this is all just a message to Luka. I'm reading into it. Of course, I'm guessing, I'm speculating, who knows? But maybe this is as much a message to Luka as it is to the Lakers to add this piece or that piece, because as Brian mentioned, they were the 3 seed in the Western Conference. They have Luka for an offseason and a whole season now. Maybe that's all this really is, because he's not getting a new deal off of this. He's probably not getting traded off of this, but he can get that guy who's the best player even better.